Hello, and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We have with us a couple who are medical missionaries, Dr. Dennis and Paula Lofstrom, and they've come into the studio to talk with us about a mission they're about to embark upon, and that is to go to Tanzania, Iambi, and they'll be working in a hospital there, a 170-bed hospital that is essentially serving 200,000 people in the larger area of the hospital. It's an extraordinary amount of work that they have set out to accomplish. Denny has been there in the past, back in the late 50s and early 60s. He knows the terrain. They both were there this past summer, and they've come back to the United States to meet with people, to gather supplies and equipment and interest in the project, and they've come onto the show to educate all of us about the extraordinary work that they are doing out in Tanzania, in a population, by the way, that is so desperately needy for some kind of medical attention. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you both.
Nice for us to be here.
Good, good. So you have been in this world of, you're a nurse, an LPN, is that correct?
I'm an LPN, yes.
And you are a physician.
I'm an MD.
For many, many years,
Right.
Both of you. What brought you first, Denny, to Tanzania? What inspired you to do this in the first place?
Well, I decided to go into medicine and to medical missions way back when I was about 13 years old.
Wow.
And when I finished medical school, I applied. They did not have a position open. I practiced in northern Minnesota for 3 years. Suddenly got a call from the mission board saying, we need somebody right now that has surgical experience, medical experience, and family practice. Can you go within the month? I said, not possibly, but maybe within 3 or 4 months. And so went out to Tanzania, which was Tanganyika at that time. Mm-hmm. They had not gained their independence. They had not combined with Zanzibar.
I see.
But first he went to Liverpool and got his master's in tropical medicine.
Oh, is that so?
Right.
Liverpool, England?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. God.
Yeah.
So that started you on the path.
Right. Exactly.
And now, do I understand also that you spent time in Guatemala?
Yes, we've gone to Guatemala 10 of the last 15 years doing just 2-week medical missions.
I see.
Up in the highlands of Guatemala.
God. So in a sense, you go to the places that are poorest and neediest. Is that so?
Yes.
But Paula has been working almost full-time collecting medicines for those trips.
I see.
So.
God almighty. This is incredible. Now, you were just back in Tanzania this past summer.
Yes.
And you were there, of course, 40 years ago.
40 years ago, and then we spent 10 weeks, 2.5 months, on this new survey for the Iambi Hospital, and brought the report back to the sponsoring groups here in the United States.
I see. And that's the basis of your fundraising and interesting people in the entire project.
That's correct.
That report.
Mm-hmm. While we were out there, we were asked to develop a 5-year plan for the hospital to prepare it for the coming AIDS crisis and to get it back online as a full-service hospital for the people that need it.
Mm-hmm.
For this.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting that of all of Africa, Iambi, and maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tanzania, has not been that affected. I don't even want to say yet, but let's just say it has not yet been affected by the AIDS crisis in Africa.
Down on the coast, there has been an increase in AIDS. In fact, about 40% of all hospital admissions in Dar are either AIDS or associated with AIDS. However, up in our isolated area in central Tanzania, the incidence is only about 6 to 7% of our hospital admissions.
Now, so what accounts for the difference?
Actually, AIDS follows the transportation routes, and there are no major transportation routes coming into
because
that
you're
central
inland.
area. Right. It's isolated.
And the roads are terrible, so they're not truckers, they're not truck stops.
I see.
There are not the kinds of things that can go on there, so
I see.
it's starting, but it's not there
Right.
en masse yet.
Right. And if you're successful, it may not be at all.
We're trying to blunt the peak of AIDS in that area by AIDS education, and that is being done through the Central Diocese and through the Episcopalian ministry that worked in Uganda back in 1994 to 1996. And they decreased the rate of infection by 50% simply by education. We are using that same pattern for central Tanzania at this time.
That's the model, by education and the use of condoms.
That's
Tell
correct.
me.
Correct.
So you still do have the blood transfusion issue to deal with,
Definitely.
but apparently the primary method of transmission is sexual.
That's right.
Is that the understanding?
Yes.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
through bodily fluids?
Yes.
Yes, but
Indeed.
you don't hear about that much. It's just
No. But the hospital itself does not have adequate testing for AIDS. They only have what they call a capillary test. It's only about 60 to 70% accurate. There's no electricity at the hospital. We are working on a solar installation for the laboratory in order to have a ELISA test, which is very accurate
Yes.
to assess the AIDS incidence.
ELISA test, Dr. Russell Jaffe,
that's right.
an old friend
We
of mine.
feel that
Oh,
assuring the blood supply is one of the best gifts that we can give.
absolutely. Oh, this is amazing. So you'll be operating a solar, if all goes well, a solar-powered laboratory.
That's
Right.
correct.
And
With
there's
a
no
solar pa-
electricity, but there's one generator
We have
that
a
works
generator.
part-time.
Yeah, our generator goes 3 hours a night, 4 nights a week. And then there's a smaller generator we can turn on just during surgery and then flip off again. But the generators run on diesel, and diesel is really, really expensive. Same way
About
with,
$5 a gallon,
well, that was in August, now it's probably more.
probably higher.
And then the pump is also diesel run, so they pump water every other day unless the pump's broken. Twice we went 6 days with no water. So,
Paula, you told me the other day of a story that was just awesome to me about how children, because of the dearth of water, would put their mouths up to pipes and drink the seeping water out of it.
we went to one of the smaller villages. We're saying, what is your need? The biggest need is always maji, water. The pump is, you pump it up and down like this, okay. The kids often, that's the kid's job, go pump. All right. Even with a kid pumping, or anyone, all day long, there is not enough water for the whole village. It's a terrible problem. So the children are thirsty. And they'll drink from a leaky pipe. They'll drink from the stream because they're thirsty. And then they'll get typhoid and very, very serious illness. If we had a windmill, we could have enough water for the whole village.
So the water is there, but...
But not the means of getting it to the surface.
Oh, so the pump just isn't strong enough?
No, each windmill and installation borehole will cost about $25,000. They have no way, have they the funds to produce that much in the way of water production.
So basically, in central Tanzania, I mean, this is just a forgotten community of people. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people with one doctor until you two get there. You know, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's not to be believed.
Well,
And yet true.
it's true. It's third world medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one doctor for
200,000 people.
200,000 is just...
They don't go to the doctor unless it's really bad.
Yet, there's a great prevalence of, you told me, malaria,
The big
typhoid. Yeah,
Yeah.
please tell.
the big killers of children especially.
Yes.
That's malaria and typhoid because the kids get dehydrated. And then tuberculosis is endemic, and then leprosy, and then AIDS
God.
in our area.
So, in fact, AIDS is at the low end of the poll.
It's not very prominent at the present time. Within a 7-mile radius of the hospital, there are 9 villages with 37,000 people. In the past 3 years, there have been 55 AIDS deaths. There are 106 orphans. We hope to blunt even more with education.
And you have a company that is providing, or is it the World Health Organization providing condoms?
Yes, through African Team Ministries, which is out of California, and it's a non-denominational bunch of people, and they are doing this great pilot project for teaching about AIDS, what causes AIDS, and then the WHO is going to provide the condoms.
Do we really know what causes AIDS? Do we really know
We know
what
how it's
AIDS
transmitted.
is? I don't know. This has been actually a controversy in the United States and Europe for many, many years about the actual medical definition of AIDS. It's not clear. Maybe it's clear to you. Enlighten us.
It's an immune deficiency disease.
That we know.
And the virus knocks out the immune system. And
So you've determined that it is definitely a virus.
a virus particle type of infection. Yes.
And with the weakened immune system, then they become subject actually to any host of other diseases, which,
That's
in my
correct.
understanding, it's
That's
actually
correct.
those that kill them.
And yes, pneumonia, tuberculosis.
Right.
There's a malignant disease called Kaposi's sarcoma, which developed prominently when AIDS. Yes, it allows other
Infections.
to become very prominent and actually cause death.
Yes, yes. You have some fabulous shots of the place, and this might help to bring the audience into the whole picture, so to speak.
Okay.
What if I show these and you
Okay.
both narrate? How does that sound?
Well, this is Tanzania, and right at the tip of that arrow is where our hospital is. We're about 200 miles south of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh.
We're not too far from the game parks, but there are very, very few roads, and the roads that are there are really terrible.
And nor do you have any transportation, right?
Right.
There's one car.
One car for
Is
the
that correct?
hospital when
Which
it's
is its
there,
ambulance.
and it's there 8 days a month only.
Oh, is that so?
Turn this up.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
These are just some of the children in the village, rather just typical.
Yes.
Going by one day, and they're beautiful.
They're so beautiful.
They're beautiful. They're polite.
Uh-huh.
And soft-spoken, and the children there are taught English from Form 3 on. So most everyone in the area speaks Swahili, Iramba, and
English.
English.
God. So is your primary language with them English or Swahili?
Swahili. They put up with us very graciously.
And are they ensconced in their own cultures very thoroughly, or has that been modified by Western influence?
It has been modified to a certain extent, but during the past 40 years, there are 2 generations which have not been exposed to really any of the conveniences of Western living. They just haven't been there. So that we have you tell about Edward.
Oh, well, all of the laundry is done, of course, by hand in cold water. And I wrote this in email home. And I had a copy of it sitting on our coffee table. And Dr. Rizal's brother came.
That's the one doctor who is
doctor there.
at the premises, right?
And his brother is an engineering student. And he read that email, and he said, well, Paula, how do you laundry? And I said, well, Edward, I throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer, fold it, and put it away. And he said, a machine? You have a machine that washes clothes? It just wasn't a concept.
Yep.
They haven't seen it, and
Haven't heard
not
of it,
something they
nothing.
thought about.
In this area, and that's not true of all of Tanzania.
That's
That's not true of all of Tanzania.
Uh-huh.
But in this area, there have been 2 generations that have grown up without any exposure to any of the modern conveniences.
But my question is, are they living according to their indigenous ways and tribal customs that may stretch back for many, many generations?
Yes, it varies. It varies actually from village to village even. And some of them are more attuned to the Western style of living, and that depends upon who they've had. Some of the retired pastors that were there as active pastors when I was are now retired, and they have imparted to their people some of the Western style
I see.
of living.
And their schooling is the British system,
Mm-hmm.
and so all of the children go to about 6th grade. Now, to go on to high school or secondary school is not free. They have to, and there's not a school in every town. So in order for a child to go to high school or secondary school, they have to qualify, and their family has to have enough money for them to essentially go to a boarding school and have bus fare back and forth. So only about 20% of the total population of the country goes on to high school. So most people are about a 6th grade education.
I see. Oh, my God. If you would, continue the
This is
tour.
maternal and child health, and as you can see,
This is the maternity ward.
No, this is where
Oh.
they bring the babies for their
Well,
baby checks.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's a scale here where they can weigh the babies.
Mhm.
And then as you can see up here, the ceilings, the roofs leak, and so all of the ceilings are just falling down. And of course, the water goes along the wall, and it's a mess. So we're
Yes.
trying to put new roofs on. In order to do that, we are selling 2x2 ceiling tiles for $8 a piece. And that $8 will pay for the tile, the stringers to hold it up, the trusses above it, and the iron sheet roof on top. And we need to sell 7,500
Oh, my
in order
God.
to do that. Okay, now you need to go sideways.
Yes.
There you go. This is pediatrics,
Uh-huh.
which in the dry season is only 1 patient per bed. But in the wet season, when malaria is more prevalent, it's 3 patients per bed.
And these are mosquito nets you see on the top.
Yes, and this is mosquito netting. The mosquitoes that come out, that cause malaria, come out at night. So you put the kids to bed as soon as it's dusk. They love that. And try and keep them under the netting. But the truth is, Mitch, that all of the children get malaria.
Really?
Everybody gets malaria. Everybody.
Oh, God.
If you survive it, you survive it.
What is the survival rate?
3 out of 4 live to be 5, which is better than in Guatemala where we work, where it's 1 in 5 lives to be 5. So, it's,
Again, because of malaria?
and no, in Guatemala it's because of water.
Because of water? Oh, just
Contaminated
contaminated water?
enteritis mainly, infection in the intestine for the youngsters.
Oh,
This is one of the little gentlemen that lives in the village. The hospital started as a leprosarium, and so a lot of the people, when they were dismissed, rather than going all the way back to their natural villages, they created a village right around the hospital. Because all the lepers are treated free, and for whatever's wrong with them, whether it's related to their leprosy or not. So they can come in and get medicine, be seen for nothing, and if they're hungry, they're given food. If there's clothing and they need clothing and they've got it, they give it to them. So this little guy came in not because of his leprosy, but because he had an eye infection. And we were given $5,000 worth of eye medication by a pharmaceutical company to take out there.
Now, even when they pay, you were telling me that the cost is about 20 cents?
20 cents, yes. It's 200 shillings or 20 cents to be seen, but an awful lot of people don't have 20 cents.
They don't even have 20 cents because the standard of living, if a person have it all, is about $20 a month.
$20 a month, yes, is the average. This is Mama Waze, and she walks on her knees. You can see the calluses on her knees because she has no feet, and there are no wheelchairs.
Well, there's one wheelchair, or that's...
Well,
That was a potty chair.
yeah, that was a potty chair with wheels on it, but it's not a wheelchair.
Right.
This is the way that leprosy is spread, that it takes a long time of skin-to-skin contact. Well, leprosy is an indolent disease that doesn't show up for 20 years or more. So the women start having babies at about 15 or 16, as they do in most third world countries. They have an average of 7 babies. They carry the baby on the back for a year or 2. The mother may not know until after she's had all of her children that she herself is infected. It presents as kind of a white or reddish patch that looks like you got next to a weed that, gave you an
little
itchy
rash.
disease, yeah. And so they deny it. Oh, no, not me. I don't have that. And until they start having the deformities. And then it is treatable. It's arrestable. But by then, all of her children may be infected too.
Yeah. So if it is treated early, then the loss of limbs and what have you, and the deformities won't necessarily follow?
Can be prevented.
It can be?
Can be prevented. Right.
Incredible. So
Yeah.
what do you hope to accomplish? I mean, I know this is a very difficult question, and you're raising money, and you're getting supplies, and people are being generous, and that's wonderful. When you're dealing with 200,000 people and 2 physicians, 1 nurse, a small nursing school, what is it that you're basically looking to stem the tide of growing disease?
Right. Actually, on the 5-year development plan that we outlined, which was accepted by the Central Diocese and by its sister synod here in the United States, the Southeast Minnesota Lutheran Synod, we're attempting to raise some $400,000 a year for 5 years to get this hospital completely refurbished and back modernized. Right.
With electricity?
Hopefully, yes.
Or you want to have a whole solar hospital?
We're hoping to, because even on the grid, on the country grid, you can very often have 1 or 2 day interruptions in your electricity. I think what we're trying to do is to support the population that is there, the doctors and the nurses that are there. We are there right now to give them a jump start, a kick start, and to support their work and essentially work ourselves out of a job.
Yes, right. The best thing. The best thing for all of us in the health professions to do. Because
true.
people are self-empowered and knowledgeable enough to handle themselves. So your main tools are really education.
That's true.
And interestingly, the medicines that you're using, as you said before, Denny, are not that expensive.
That's correct. DDS, for instance, is very economic.
That's for the treatment of leprosy.
Of leprosy, right. And there is a program developed by the ELCT, which is the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania, for buying medicines locally, which are much cheaper than those we can get in the United States. And we are trying to fund monthly a medical budget that can be paid directly to ELCT, and then Dr. Rosario can order the medicines monthly, and they will be sent down from the headquarters each month. We're trying to get that established. It's going to take about $2,000 to $3,000 a month in order to do that.
But you see, the typhoid is treated with antibiotics, and so they're not the real expensive antibiotics, but you have to have them on hand and be ready when needed.
Yeah. Now, are you getting some assistance from the World Health Organization?
For the condoms.
For the condoms.
And that's all that we know
That's
of.
pretty much it, huh?
Yeah.
Incredible. The disparity in economics is remarkable, and you know it better than most, having lived there, actually. It's hard for people to really fathom, and the work you're doing is just so laudable. I mean, it's so laudable. You know, it's so full of lessons. Now, are you also teaching people?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Sure, there's the AIDS education, but you say to replace yourselves.
Right.
How are you teaching medicine
In our 5-year development plan, each of the major supervisors, which will be the medical supervisor, Paula and myself, and the construction supervisor, the farm manager, and the maintenance department of the hospital. All of these people will, over a 3-year period, be training their replacements, so that after 3 years, we'll have an indigenous population, we'll have an infrastructure that can continue this.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. And also, as I understand, there's a 500-acre farm.
Right.
That's there.
And there's a dam across the Darumo River, which was put in by the American Leprosy Society back in 1956 to 58, and by the American Lutheran Church also. And that was a 40-acre lake which had fish, and then it was used for irrigation for what we call a shamba, which is a truck garden of 20 acres below the dam, had 5 crops a year, and fed all of the people at the leprosarium and all of the staff, and even had produce for sale. We hope to reinstitute that.
Yes, exactly. So it's really interesting. It actually costs very little money to operate this whole thing, relatively speaking.
By American
Where
standards, yeah.
A couple of 100,000 people, by American standards. I mean, if you had, $100,000 a year, this would be handled. I know I'm talking about just the development of and the refurbishing, but just in terms of like operating expenses.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a good deal less than that, and several 100,000 people would be cured, healed, educated. And I assume that part of the education, by the way, is population control.
Well, when the condoms are out there, that'll mean a lot.
Handle it. Okay.
It's the beginning of peacemaking, you see.
Exactly.
Caring,
Exactly.
teaching, establishing one-on-one relationships. That's the beginning of peacemaking.
Exactly. And the cultivation of love.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to just thank you both so much for your beautiful, heartfelt work and commitment to making this world a better place for so many people.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. And go to the website that will be posted and learn more about this project. I think you'll find it most gratifying. Well, I look forward to seeing you all next week.